Welcome to the simpliHOM podcast, where we educate, inspire, and entertain real estate entrepreneurs seeking a casual and practical podcast. We're here to simplify your life and business.
You can find growth anywhere. And as long as you have an open mind and take those opportunities to learn, then you're going to grow from it.
The easiest thing too is just always being in your zone of genius. What you are passionate about and are good at.
The mindset shift is drastic when you're thinking of I am this person as opposed to I want to become or one day I will be is huge.
I feel like a lot of real estate companies have been putting a focus on themselves basically. Recently we've been putting it on the agents, and that's when our socials have been doing the best. It's become really personal and we've gotten a lot more traction.
What up? What up? Welcome back to the simpliHOM podcast, the best podcast on the internet for real estate agents in business and everything else. We're number one. All right. Starting on my left, introducing Sean Mikey, our CEO and founder. We have Sarah Wiley Armstrong, or Swy as we love to call her. We have Grant on the ones and twos. Say what's up.
Say hey, Grant.
Awesome. And we have Brett Rutkowski, our COO and right-hand man.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to do it for him.
Kyle Man.
Oh, yeah. I'm Kyle Man.
Best storyteller of all time.
Thanks. Oh, no. What happened? Well, I want to start first. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you don't know that we have it on video, we have it on video. We have a YouTube channel. We have it on Spotify. Turn on video on Spotify. We're on there.
Don't watch this part, though, because I'm red.
Where do you read from?
Just something.
No big deal. You can just listen back
Watch
later.
us.
Okay.
Listen to us.
Fair enough.
We're beautiful, and we sound good.
And I can see the analytics, and I know a lot of you that are listening are not subscribed. So please do yourself a favor,
Tisk,
subscribe.
tisk.
We
As Andy
know.
Frisell says, pay the fee.
Pay the fee. If you've gotten any value at all, do that. Okay, well, today we're talking about something that's maybe relevant to some people today. All right, we've had a pretty crazy market. I'm not a real estate agent, but I happen to work for a real estate brokerage, so I hear a lot of the things that are happening in the industry. And what I hear is that there are some agents, generally new agents, maybe have only been in for 3 to 4 years. And the chaos of this market and the unpredictability, and from their vantage point, can be a bit intimidating. So that got me to think about, okay, how do we, as business owners, as entrepreneurial minded, how are we as athletes? Some of us are athletes at this table. What do we do when we encounter anything chaotic or stressful? So what are those things that we do? How do we overcome them? And I wanted to start this off with a quote that I think is relevant here before opening it up. And it's a paraphrase quote, but by aiming high, we are choosing the route where pressure and stress obligingly come along for the ride. So by choosing to be better, by choosing to be more successful, by actively going out and taking the road less traveled, we are volunteering ourselves for the stress, for gray hair and heart flutters and chest pain.
Yeah, been fighting it all day.
Anxiety attacks.
No big deal. So, I wanted to kind of open it up first and start with, like, for you guys, what are those moments when you can tell that stressful moment's about to be there? So what is it for you that makes you that starts that panic, that fight or flight? Not the actual panic, but like, when do you start to feel that like tingling in your forehead? I don't know if you guys get that, but I get like a little tingle right here. Yeah. And then you know, the pit of your stomach. But I want to know, like, what are the common themes? Like, what got you to that point? So was it like,
I get it when I relax.
oh no,
He can't sit still.
Well, we talked the other day. I had a headache, and he dropped a BC powder on my desk. I said, "You trying to kill me?"
He loves some BC powder.
No,
It's got caffeine in it.
I was like, but it has caffeine, and it's like a leaf, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, I'm allergic to a leaf. He's like, allergic? I was like, yeah. Like when I took it, I felt like my body was just like jello. He goes, that means it's working. I was like, oh, I don't know what that feels like. So it feels really scary to me.
I like being in control.
Relax.
That's why I like flying.
yeah.
I don't know. Like literally, that's my answer. When I start to relax, I start to get like anxious about like I'm sitting still too long. I'm falling behind. I'm watching other people pass me. I was working until 2:30 or so this morning. comprehending a couple of different options that are being currently explored. And as I was doing it, I found myself falling into the all well-known trap of comparison, right? Of like, oh, well, this person's doing this and this company's doing that, and why am I not doing that when I'm working as hard as I know I'm working? And, you know, that's a really easy way to fall into that like anxiousness. It's a driver of it. And then you stack it with not sleeping well. And then you sit there and you're like feeling the stress and the tension in your body during lunch appointments that have nothing to do with any of those things, you know? So it's, those are my things, you know, comparison and relaxation.
Sean does not like, he doesn't like the beach, even though he likes going to the beach. He
Likes the idea of the
It's,
beach.
I was
He
about to
likes-
say, he
yes.
likes the idea of the beach.
I like making memories with my family, right? Like, I think that's where it is. But then ultimately I'm like, okay, I got to get back to,
Was there ever a time that you did enjoy those things?
oof,
No.
no.
Not even
Answer
as
It's
a
just
kid?
how I'm wired. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw a Gary Vee video the other day where he mentioned that he was envious of people who are able to do those types of things, who are
Yeah.
able to relax. I find that same thing for me, right? Like when I had my motorcycle and I'd go ride these back roads, and I would see these people who are like perfectly happy living in the middle of the country, you know, mowing their lawn and whatever. And like, that's just like the definition of simplicity and relaxation for them. And for me, it's like the definition of hell. Like I wish that I could find those simple moments like that and be okay and content with them. But I can't. I mean, you guys have flown with me. Like my idea of relaxation is listening to air traffic control yell at you 100 miles an hour and not hit other airplanes and face crazy weather when you're, I mean,
But the constant adjustments.
yeah, it's like,
But that's when you're able to turn your brain off to that side, right? To the
Correct.
business, to the not, you're using, I don't want to say, I don't know, obviously I'm not a doctor, but the other side of your brain that's like, all right, I'm focused on this one thing where 99% of the time you're focused on 8,000 things.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's for me, they're like dealing with stress. There's been a lot of different like paths when it's come up. There's been times where I'm stressed. When I first started real estate, I had no money. Then the stress, as you start getting into it, the stresses change.
yeah.
Now it's to the point where with being with simpliHOM and working on Sean's vision and helping get us to where we're going, it's a completely different stress than running my own company.
Right.
Where the stresses of that are just like, it was literally me making the decision, am I doing the right thing? When I had no money, I was like, all right, where's the next dollar coming from?
Right.
And just being able to know that you're going to go through, like you said, the in the quote, you're choosing this path and there always is going to be a stress. It's how you respond to those stressors.
Which we'll be going
Yeah,
over in the
yeah.
second part of the question. Swai, what do you?
Okay, so I was thinking about it. I think a lot of the times I start to feel that stress is when things feel out of control and out of my control. I can't just tangibly fix them. But that's literally life. So you kind of have to roll with the punches. I'm obviously a control freak, if you guys haven't noticed that about me. But
me too.
yeah, we all are.
Oddly
a little
enough,
bit.
I think we all
I think
yeah.
we all are. Yeah.
Yes.
I might be the least of it, actually.
No, and so a lot of those times is like knowing that things aren't going to be in my control. Like the stressors are going to come. Like whether it was like one of the stressful things I did here was onboarding, and it was because I never knew when someone was going to onboard, and I never knew when someone was going to get upset about something. And so that was just a constant stressor of I'd see an email come through at 9 p.m. and I can't fix it. I can't contact them right now to get it under control. All I can do is everything to the best of my ability, and that is kind of just how I put it to rest a little bit. But
Yeah.
they're coming. Whoa!
Oh, all right.
Party foul.
I think it's the first party foul we've ever
I
had.
I think it's the first time that's
Wow.
ever happened.
I just
My hands are just right, and I get really
He's
excited.
stressed.
I didn't know what
Such
to
a
do with my
great
hands.
So stressed.
Well, you mentioned something interesting, and I never thought about it, but it's the uncertainty of not knowing where the work was coming or when the work was coming. Mm-hmm. And I think there's also, creatively, when I'm waiting, quote unquote, waiting for inspiration, if you will, or like there's a problem that you've been mulling over in your head. You don't know when that solution's coming, but you're actively trying to. I was trying to decide if that's stressful, or if the fact that that's a part of what I do makes it less stressful.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have the answer to that question, but I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that.
We'll put a pin in it.
But
We'll revisit that.
I think for me, it's a lack of preparation. Anytime I've been like overly stressed is because I didn't prepare enough. Either I didn't have
Story
enough
in my life.
didn't have enough sleep, or physical exercise. So
Also,
my body
yep.
and my mind.
Check.
And then over committing to things that don't benefit me.
Not being able to say no.
Not being able to say no. So I'm so bothered by the amount of water on the table right now.
It's okay.
I
Just
think
keep
I'm just
going.
gonna play like, oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're like a little kid.
Yeah,
Playing
like,
a
okay,
puddle.
yeah, that's what I did.
Good thing these are waterproof.
So, I mean, those are obviously, there's obviously things, those are all things that we can do to help prepare for those stressful times. And there are times when we're not prepared for those moments. That's why we become stressed. But let's say you do everything right. Let's say you did put the work in. Let's say you do know that the work was coming, yet you're still in the midst of chaos.
Good.
Chaos is good.
So how do you handle those moments when you have prepared yourself and you feel like you've been prepared, but yet you are being thrust into chaos? What do you do in order to calm yourself, calm your mind, whatever it be? What are the tools that you guys use? Tools, habits, routines, like in moments of like, for example, so I was just in a CrossFit competition, #1 team, and I got
Atta
to
girl.
Two-time champ.
I got to witness Swy in the moment, and I happened to have a camera with me, and I got to capture and I was wondering, like, there was a moment when you were like digging deep. This was the last workout of the day.
Yes.
And I wanted to know where does your head go? Because obviously there's a level of stress to that. There's a level of chaos in that as well. You have all these different variables. So like for you, and it doesn't have to be about the workout, but like where does your brain go when you're like, okay, you're in the midst of chaos and you need to find order in that? How do you do that? How do you calm the mind? How do you?
So I'm someone, like I said, I like to give my all because that's truly the only thing I can bank on. And so I think that comes with a lot of confidence in knowing that I've equipped myself and I am equipped with all that I've got, And so in those times, also knowing that your team is who you're working for and not yourself, there's a lot of freedom in knowing that other people have your back, but then there's also a stress in knowing that you could let someone down.
So it's
a battle.
For you, it's like this reassurance and confidence that comes from the fact that, one, you have a team that's looking out for you. Are you in those moments? Are you in your head a lot? Are you trying to figure out, okay, this is the thing to do next, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this? Or is it like...
So we'll just think back, because Saturday, you just mentioned that was the last workout. So if you don't know anything about a CrossFit competition, is you literally compete and just do workouts and
just abuse yourself all day long.
Yes. So you get your booty kicked all day long. And so you've done all those movements, and a lot of times they'll release the workouts before, so you're able to practice them. And that was actually one of the workouts we had practiced. And they actually released it as it was going to be the first workout, and it was the very last one. Yeah. So I was confident in my abilities, and I had no other option. And my body literally wanted to stop, and I was not going to give it that. That was just not what was going to happen. I knew I had prepared. I was confident. I had a team, and I wasn't letting anyone down. And so that is just kind of where you have to dig, is you're not working for just yourself.
Yeah. Nice. So just...
You go dark.
You go dark. You go full
want to
dark.
cry.
So you put things into perspective. Like you were able to like take a moment. Nice.
Like all I could think about during that is, I mean, I remember kind of seeing you, but literally I was getting so mad because my legs were trying to stop working, but I knew I was capable. And so I just had no other option but not to stop.
Pure will.
Pure will.
Well,
Yes.
you'd done the movements before.
Yes.
You had prepared. You had. So in those moments of, did you ever doubt yourself in that moment?
I I was just frustrated with myself knowing that I could do this skill.
Oh, the sound of a
Better.
perfectionist.
Yep.
I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it was a heavier weight, but sorry, I keep talking about working out, but
No,
literally
it's fine.
this is the
Yeah, yeah.
scenario we're talking about. And typically when I've practiced that workout or even done that weight, I could do 15 reps straight. So when I got to the 15 reps and at 8, I had to drop it or I was not going to be able to finish
Yeah.
the last 7. That really took a turn for me mentally.
I was
So-
watching a Braves game last night. I got home and just like flicked it on, then opened my computer, it kept working. And at the end of the game, the closing pitcher for the Giants came out, and the dude's throwing like 101 miles an hour, right? And this guy hits a pop-up. Like, nothing happens. The guy gets out. Like, he did his job. And the pitcher takes his glove and just like launches it into the ground. And it's only the second out. Like, there's still another out he has to get. And everyone was so confused by it. And I watched it and I was like, I think he's just like being really hard on himself. And that's really what it takes to get like to that next level, whether it's personally, professionally, whatever, is just being the hypercritical person with yourself that no one else is willing to become or be. Some of the things that I've done, I am the epitome of the perfectionist. It's something I've had to train myself out of. As we grew the company, I had to realize that perfectionism is the enemy of profitability and productivity. Sometimes you just push something out there and then tweak it and make it right, which is what we've been working on, what Brett's been working on over the last 6 months.
The art of the start. Guy Kawasaki talks about that.
Yeah.
Put it out there,
Just
fix it
do
on
it.
the go.
Like, just do it. Because otherwise you end up in analysis paralysis land and you never
Yes.
actually do. And then 2 years goes by and then you sit there staring at all the competitions blowing past you and so on. But, you know, one of the things I talked about yesterday in my training for the new agents was attitude curve. And it's something that everyone suffers from by default, where they get super excited about something and then it doesn't exactly have the outcome that they desire. And then they crash and then they're just in this like curve, right? And so I had to train myself out of the attitude curve, and I probably did it a little too much, right? Like, I took indifference and numbness to a whole new level. Like, I don't really.
That's why he's emotionless now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really celebrate the victories. I look at the victory and I acknowledge it, but then I'm like, all right, but we got to get here.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot left to do.
Yeah.
I don't really feel the negatives anymore. That's one of the things that was a benefit. I mean, you can hit me with anything and I'm going to be like, okay, cool. How do we fix it? Let's just go fix it. Right. So persevering through those challenges, and just don't think. Like, I don't think about the stress. If I sit back and I go, hey, you know, we've got, 22 employees or however many we have, and all of their families are dependent upon this job. And then we have 400 agents and they're dependent upon our support staff to be able to provide the functions so that they can effectively perform their jobs, and all of the different scale metrics and dollars that are associated with it. I would get easily bogged down into inaction. So I think you just have to like block it out. And it's a lot like what you had to do when you're just like, you're hyper focused. It's just a hyper focus. It's a form of hyper focus when you just block out the thought and just do.
There's a quote I wrote down earlier. It kind of fits in with this. What such a man needs is not courage, but nerve control, cool-headedness. This he can only get by practice. And that's by Theodore Roosevelt. And it's in those moments of chaos that we have to, that is not the time for complex plans. Like, you're reverting back to the things you already knew, the training you already had, the things that you already had like the things that you practiced. And the thing with practice is that, like, anytime you have to practice something, it means that you suck at something and you're trying to get better.
Yeah.
So you may be really bad at responding emotionally. And I think that was especially true for me because of like the nature of who I am. I'm a very emotional person. I am a creative person. I feel the ebbs and flows of energy and positivity and negativity, and it affects me to a degree. And part of my job is to make sure that I'm taking emotions and putting them down into a medium, right? But you have to take wherever you are naturally based off of how you were raised, things that you're predisposed to, and then you have to get practice. For me, it was learning more about stoicism and knowing like how to how to check your emotions at the door and how to be level-headed. I'm not the best at it.
I have no idea what that even means.
Stoicism. Stoicism.
No, I know level-headed. I don't know stoicism.
Stoicism. It is a form of philosophy that was made popular back with a lot of like classical philosophers. So you think of Seneca. You have. I'm drawing a blank on. So
waiting for a name. I know.
So do you know who Marcus Aurelius is?
Yep.
So he's one of the greatest Roman rulers to ever exist at the peak of the Roman Empire. And he has a book called Meditations. It's just a collection of his journal entries. And that he was taught by Stoic philosophers.
Gotcha.
So it's all about staying humble, keeping a cool head in hectic situations. So anyway, so if you want a place to start, The Obstacle is a Way is a great one since we're talking about how to operate under stress. There's a book called The Obstacle is a Way by Ryan Holiday. And it's essentially using stoicism to help in business. So
what about some practical options for those of us who are not going to read?
Yeah. So for me in chaos, back obviously at a younger Brett, would use the emotion and the reaction of what's going on. And I've realized that when you're in the chaos or whatever's happening, it's not as bad as you think it is. And I've 100% I've been able to, like Sean said, be able to train myself that I don't 100% react emotionally to what's going on. And nowadays, when something's happened or the chaos, say, I don't know, somebody's upset about something. Why are they listening, why are they upset about something? And how we taking ownership as a business owner, how can we take ownership of that and make sure nobody ever experiences that again? And it's always comes from being able to solve or make sure that issue doesn't arise. If you're not learning from that, there's going to be somebody else, and it will be if you don't fix it, it will be a continued thing. Perfect example. This is why I am huge on, and Sean said for the last 6 months, onboarding. It's something that I'm always trying to tweak because it can always be better. At the end of the day, that's the first experience these agents have with us. And if that is not the best experience possible, they will not, it lessens their chance of being lifelong simpliHOM agents. Then, so it goes down to like, okay, you have some bad experiences. This person gets upset. We've had people, the onboarding process was not great, and they decide to leave right away.
Which has happened like once out of 400 people.
And it will never happen. But at that point, that's okay. What is the issue? Why did that happen?
Where did we drop the ball?
Correct. Because it's not, at the end of the day, it doesn't, and we're talking about business, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to the agents, our customers. It doesn't matter to them. We're in the wrong. And I'm not the person's like, oh, customer's always right. But if you go into it with that mindset, whether you decide that they're truly right or not, if you can just take ownership, one, it cuts down for me that emotional stress. Is like, all right, like just have that conversation with them right away or whatever, like handle that exact chaotic situation head on and then come up with the solution. A lot of people like to hide from chaos. You can't do that. That was me for a long time. I didn't like having tough conversations. I didn't like having tough conversations. I just didn't like confrontation, essentially.
Right.
And it's okay. It's never that bad.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just look at what is the chaos I'm going through? What am I going through right now? Take a step back, take a deep breath. How do I fix that chaos? And I might not be able to. It might just be a season of life that I'm going through.
Right.
It is, But if it is a season of life, how do I get out of that as quick as possible?
Yeah.
That's two supporting points to that. So Jocko Willink, who I've referenced before, he's a Navy SEAL, now an author, a speaker.
Is he the one with the podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
In an energy drink now.
Have you heard it?
Miller has listened to it, and Took a
Oh,
little
yeah,
nap.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I would too.
It starts off so dark every time. It's
Yeah.
always really dark.
Yeah.
Well, and I woke up to it too. I was like, how long has this man been going?
A long time.
hours.
But in his book, Extreme Ownership, within the first few pages, there's a quote, and it's relax, look around, make a call.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that's literally the most chaotic part of life. Like in the midst of combat, this is what they're training their soldiers to do. So I think that's great advice. Also, too, I don't know how I always bring up Shaq, or Shaq always gets brought. I don't watch Shaq's content, but Shaq was talking about how there was a new basketball player on the court. It was during the finals, and he could tell that, you know, we kind of have this when we get really stressed out, we speed things up. And there's just that moment of he was telling this guy, like, you're sprinting over to the other side of the court before the D even gets there. Like slow down, pace yourself. And then it seems counterintuitive to a chaotic situation that we slow down, but it's necessary to be able to address the problem. So if you are in a position, if you're an agent and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? Like, I feel like all these things are happening so fast. Interest rates are rising. Buyers are getting, whatever it may be, like pause. And some
Slingshot
of that,
principle, man.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
A lot of people going to the real estate side. You have a deal that's going south. They take on the stress because of that curve, right? Of they got the emotion of like, oh, this closing's 3 days away. Well, no, it ain't a closing until it's closed.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. I've had buyers go out and buy furniture and then done.
Yep.
Right?
Or
Cannot-
walk into the closing room and be like, hey, yeah, God, I quit my job today.
Yeah, and
Done.
Oh.
Instant
You
kill.
should have waited
No.
one day.
Yeah, you should have just kept your mouth shut.
Yes. Yeah. And so in that you're reactive to it instead of like, okay, how do we fix? Perfect example is I had a client that pre-qualified everything under contract, all of it, and they double input, and they didn't close it. They didn't find it until like maybe 10 days before closing, that they double inputted his income.
Oh, oops.
Wow.
Yep. So he technically was not qualified, shouldn't have been out looking. So luckily, so he said, okay, he didn't want to lose. I mean, at the end of the day, he wouldn't have, because he wouldn't have qualified. The lender, he called me, like, apologized. So, okay, how do we fix it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he was lucky enough. He had somebody that could co-sign for him, or essentially be a joint borrower. It was his dad. And so, but everyone was freaking out. The buyer was freaking out. I'm like, how bad do you want this house?
Yeah, you got to slow everything down for
Yeah,
sure.
just, you've got 10 days. Like, no, we don't want to, but let's worry about right now. What can we do now? What are our options? And from there, then you go from there. Then you make a decision. I mean, Sean and I have been through a lot, right? And there's nothing worse than, for you having a family, and for me having a wife.
A family.
You got a family, bro. You got 17 dogs.
Yeah, facts. And for those of you that don't know, I have 4 dogs and 2 cats. But
More kids than me.
yeah, there's I don't think, outside of maybe some health issues or people dying or whatever, there's nothing worse than having no money and not being able to afford anything, but still trying to grow a business.
People dying or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably,
Empathy. It's a work in progress.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He's emotionless. For me, that is the highest amount of stress I've ever been through. Having my car repossessed, and you've had it worse, right? But I've stole water from the next door neighbor, right? I mean, I wasn't stealing. They gave us their hose and we connected it, and that shit works.
I brute force hacked my neighbor's Wi-Fi to get their password because I didn't have internet.
Nice.
He's got to build a company,
Yeah,
though.
so-
Come on.
It was a long time ago. I'm outside of the statute.
Yeah. So just understanding that it doesn't matter what chaos, like trying to grow a real estate business or just a business in general as an entrepreneur, and you're going to go through some shit. You're going to eat shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Grant.
There's a lot of times too, like
I don't edit it anymore anyway.
I feel like emotional responses, reactions, not responses.
Yep.
It's never a response. If it's emotional, it's not a response, it's a reaction.
Yeah.
They're never good. But
No.
I feel like they're oftentimes driven by a fear caused by ignorance to the situation, right? Example, the first time I was ever in a lawsuit as a business owner, I was petrified.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the outcome would be like. I imagined someone like losing and knocking on my door and like shooting me.
I get
right?
everything.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so like I had this like huge thing play out in my mind. It's not real.
Never.
And so now that I understand it, anytime a legal challenge comes up, and full disclosure, simpliHOM's not involved in any legal challenges.
No.
But agents are involved in real estate transactions, and real estate transactions sometimes don't end well, right? Sometimes they end with a buyer and a seller who hate each other and they're going to go legal, and we always get dragged in. But knowing what that process looks like and understanding it, it allows me to be like, cool, all right, here,
There you
this
go.
is how we're
It's
going to
just
handle this. And it's really experience driven, right? Like the more experience you have, if you're a brand new agent, you're coming into a situation and you get that phone call from the lender, goes, hey, sorry, I screwed up. You've never experienced anything like this. You're absolutely going to freak out.
Yep.
But the reality is now, once you've been through it, then the next time it goes, you go, all right, well, cool. This was a solution that was available to me last time. Is this a solution we can explore today? You
No?
know?
Okay,
And
what
no.
is?
Yeah, so what's another option? And it's just one of those things. I also want to clarify, earlier I said chaos is good. Chaos is bad. Controlled chaos is good.
Yeah. Yep.
One of my favorite quotes is Mario Andretti, and I pulled it up because I don't want to misquote it because I love it so much. If everything seems under control, you're not going fast enough. And when it comes to entrepreneurship and business leadership in general, whether it's your own business as a realtor or a business of realtors, you need to move quickly. There is going to be there will be chaos components inside of your business. That's fine. Just stay the course, persevere through. Everything will work out.
Yeah. Grant, can we name this like the episode of quotes?
Quote.
I've got another quote.
I saw
Another one.
Well, it's just
Quotes and pondering.
just to
Tim
support
Ferriss'
what you
favorite.
said. An expert is a person who has made all the mistakes that can be made in a very narrow field.
Yeah.
From a Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah. Sean Mike you.
Yeah.
And there's also one more. Some of us almost crave the alarm more because it's easier than dealing with whatever is staring us in the face.
100%.
Americans are all about drama. Why do you think reality TV works so well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you're, for me, especially when you start to formulate in a stressful situation, your mind and this is the emotional response, right? You start to play out all the possible outcomes, and you usually start with the worst case scenario. And that's not a good thing to do, to let your mind wander into, because at that point you start to believe, physiologically your body responds as if it's actually happening. But what it is important is that you do define the worst case scenario, like truly define it specifically.
Yeah, we all die. The end.
That's the worst. Yeah. What's the worst? I die?
Yeah, there's like literally, there is no worst case.
That's actually my last quote for this podcast. I'll tell you about it in a minute.
Episode
Another
of
one.
quotes.
We're all gonna die anyway. So
Stressful quotes.
Stressful quote.
So if you're stressed, just read quote books. You'll be better. You'll be better.
Well, I mean, you have to define the worst case scenario, and I've harped on the podcast before, but if you haven't heard me talk about it before, I'm going to talk about it now. I think this is actually staining the table.
Nah, it'll dry.
No, it's definitely staining the table.
It'll dry.
Look at it.
It's all right. Paige has a cleaning stuff.
Okay. So when you define
If the water
What
is
kind of
staining the
water?
table, either we have an issue with the water, or you used a water-based.
You guys, I guess, have never used.
Maybe you used a water-based epoxy.
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Use your book.
Take those quote pages and
Grant needs a mic.
Grab that pillow.
a pillow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the
Yeah.
only absorbent thing we have.
At the
Take
end.
your shirt off, Kyle.
Yeah. At the end.
Don't mind if I do. So defining the worst case scenario, I might just lay my head down. We're all a little tired. We can all lay our heads down and have a nice little chit chat at nap time. I can always tell Sean loves an idea when his head goes.
Giggles a little.
It giggles a little bit. But define the worst case scenario. If you're in a situation and you are just absolutely fearing, you probably have not defined what the worst case scenario is. You probably need to, one, write it down, and two, realize that the worst case scenario isn't permanent.
And it's not that bad.
And it's not that bad.
That's what I love about.
Depends on the situation.
Yeah.
You wreck your airplane, that shit's pretty permanent.
Yeah.
Okay,
but I mean, what the worst case scenario is like, oops, I don't exist anymore.
Oh,
I don't
God.
even think
There's
about it anymore.
always going to be an exception. But
Sean hates talking about
Sean
death,
just went
by the way.
full-blown panic attack.
Yep.
Brett called me in his office. So what's the succession plan of this company? I'm like, oh my God.
No,
we're
no,
not having this conversation.
No, first off,
Literally
this
my
is how I
worst
said
nightmare.
it. Sean, what happens if you die?
Yeah, same difference.
Yeah.
that's
Just
a
so
good
people
Carry
know
on,
how.
Swy, so we can stop.
I have no idea what I was saying now.
I'm sorry.
It's
My
okay.
Well, we
like
haven't
that's
used the
a
brain
vibe.
fart button yet today.
I wouldn't call it a brain fart when everyone else caused it.
Hey, but we do have a new one.
Sup, homies? Welcome to simpliHOM.
I love it.
God bless.
Wow, that didn't absorb anything.
Yeah, what were you talking
But
about?
it moved it a little bit.
Spur her memory.
I was just talking about defining
The
the
worst
worst
case.
case scenario. It's
Oh
never as bad
yeah,
as you
I
think.
mean, and we were talking about. Brett was talking earlier. You kind of just have to make a decision and roll with it. And a lot of times, those decisions are not fatal and they're not permanent.
yeah.
Which is so nice to know. Like, there's freedom in that. Like, we all like to be in control, but a lot of times the worst case scenario, even if we're out of control, is not going to ruin the company. So I think about that a lot of times when you guys are like, just make a decision. And I do make a decision, and I know it's not going to ruin everything.
Yeah.
I am not
Everything can
that
be
special.
fixed.
I'm
There's-
not that important. I am not going to be able to affect
Yeah.
the
There's
company.
very few decisions in this world that will
That are irreversible.
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like wrecking
Like
your
worst
airplane.
case here, I mean,
You have a
Kyle
water
has
stain.
to restain the table.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there are worse things that
For
can
those of you
happen.
that don't know, Kyle made this table.
Kyle did make
Yes.
this table.
And there's always
And
going to
for
be
more
exceptions.
woodworking, call Kyle.
Well, that's why we hired Grant, because
Yeah.
he's better at it.
But let's take worst case scenario in a real estate deal, right?
Yeah.
The worst case
Yeah,
scenario.
everybody gets sued, the house burns down, and you get fired.
Worst
Okay,
case scenario.
but you'll
all
be
let's,
fine.
Let's do it. Let's do a couple. You find out 10 days before the closing that the buyer is actually not qualified. You
All
don't
right.
close.
Cool.
You shouldn't have counted that money anyway.
You got to borrow money to pay your rent.
Yes.
What did you lose?
Worst
Really?
case, worst case scenario, your buyer hates you and they try to sue you after. Did you do your job? Worst case scenario, you got to pay a fine.
There's E&O insurance.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you have legal staff on
Yeah.
staff that takes care of you.
Yeah, the biggest thing I see with real estate agents specifically in that worst case is they don't get paid. You shouldn't be doing it. I mean, yes, you should be doing it to get paid, but at the end of the day, that's not. People always come first.
Yeah, you focus on money, you ain't never going to have none.
100%. And I realized that the
best
first
grammar.
2 to 3 years of real estate is I was so focused on that money and nothing happened. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Instead of just
and-
making connections with people.
Yeah, that was preached to me from the very beginning, right? Like by Thomas, business partner. He was like, dude, focus on the people. Take
Yes.
care of the people, and the money will take care of
Always.
itself. And I was like, it's so backwards. But it's the same as slow down to speed up, right? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. You've heard that quote probably in a movie somewhere. Me too. But it's real, right? Like if you're slow and deliberate, and don't move slow, but don't go so fast that you cause mistakes and you have to go back and do it again.
Yes.
And same with like, it's counterintuitive, but if you go out there and you focus on people, take care of them, take care of their real estate goals, maybe they're wanting to buy their first house or they're looking for an investment opportunity, whatever their goal is, get aligned with it, help them accomplish that, and you will absolutely one day wake up and be like, bank account looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Don't even look at it.
Yeah, you're gonna have the. And let's put it in the perspective of your client, the buyer or the seller. You get that call. You have the seller, even the seller. You get that call. Hey, from the lender. Hey, we got bad news. Okay, and the seller's already packed up. They're ready to go. They got another property under contract. They are going to feel. You think you're stressed out because you're not getting paid. They are going to be double.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's a lot
terrible.
worse.
And if you do your job, you feel their stress.
Yes. And
you
so
should.
This is why you have to be able to control the stress, because if you can help that, if you can take that step back and cool down and help them find a solution versus, hey, we got bad news, unfortunately they can't qualify and that's it.
Well, here's an example. I had a situation, not my deal, but I was the broker at the time. It was a triple domino closing. So there was a closing that happened in the morning. a closing that was contingent on this closing happened in mid-afternoon, and a closing contingent upon this one in the late afternoon.
Buyers bought, sellers bought, sellers bought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like literally at like 5 or 6 p.m., they get a phone call from the first title company that said, sorry, we uncovered something and this deal can't close because the buyers don't qualify. Ooh. We already have people moving, like living in their home, and there's no way for them to live in their home because the first home had a problem. And that was one of those, like, I'm a new broker. I had never experienced this before in my life. I took a step back. I called David. He didn't even work at simpliHOM at the time. He was still over at Remax. I was like, I've never experienced this. The only thing I can think to do is X. What would you propose differently? You've been in this for 21 years. And he was like, yeah, I mean, I second that proposal. And so we ended up having to do like a lease back in those 2 homes for 6 months while they got the first house sold again. And that's all it was. That's all we could do.
Yeah, because trying to line that type of thing up again with another buyer. I mean, you can have those 2.
It was crazy.
You can have the
That
one
makes me
under
wanna
contract.
cry
Yeah,
It was crazy.
yeah. It's tough doing one sell and purchase, let alone 3.
It was nuts. But we have a couple of agents inside of simpliHOM that have made right at about $1 million in the last 12 months in commissions. We looked at this report yesterday and we're like,
we're trying to get like you.
So literally a couple agents who are making that kind of money. Do you think those agents are looking at their money?
No.
They don't have time to look at their money.
They sure don't. They know it's there though.
They do know it's there. They do.
I hope they know.
They know. Trust me.
So they are looking at it. Then they're not counting it.
No, they're not counting it though. And like they're focused on, I've got to take care of this person, this individual who's getting this deal. I've got to, take their picture and celebrate them online and all these different things. Like they're just focused on their business. Yeah. And in 12 months they made $1 million. Meanwhile, y'all are focused on how do I make $100,000? Go help people. That's it.
Yeah. And yes, there are going to be a little, it is, in all fairness, it is a little easier when you've made that money to not have to stress about that money. But what we're saying is that if you can set that emotion aside when you're first starting out and not
you'll be way better off in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
I think as much as we love to think that we are also individuals, that anything that we're going through is completely unique to us, it's there's assurance in knowing that like you are in good company and if anyone has ever done it before you can do it too. If anybody's ever accomplished anything that you're going through, if anybody's encountered it
and literally
and then beat it,
someone anywhere in the world has, right?
There's never a situation where you are alone.
Not being special. There truly is.
I wish college kids understood that.
So we're getting towards the end here, but I do want to go around the table one more time, and let's leave an agent who's listening right now who's like, oh man, I already know I got to subscribe to this podcast, but I just wish there was one more piece of information that I could take with me to validate that subscribe. What would you say? We'll start with you, Sean.
Stop stressing over your bank account and stress on helping as many people as you possibly can. My first real estate closing, when I got my paycheck, which was a 50% commission split, my bank account was negative $800.
Nice.
I'll go with what Nike always says. Just do it.
Boom.
Just get out there.
Stop overthinking it.
She's an Under Armour girl, though.
I'm none of those. But honestly, you're not going to ruin anything. Make the call. Do the thing. You're not special. You're not going to ruin anything. But aren't you?
You're not special.
I'm going to say...
I'm not special.
I'm going to say subscribe to see my answer in part 2.
Oh God! Here we go.
Brett just wants us to...
That's what
Cliffhanger.
Gotta leave it. Gotta make them watch it.
I hate that.
And fade to black.
Like my channel for
roll
part 2.
credits.
Yeah. So this my... Oh, do you want me to not do it? My biggest piece of advice for a brand new agent getting in is focus on growing a real business that puts people first.
Always.
Yeah.
Join simpliHOM.com.
Not a sponsor.
Yeah.
Totally.
But seriously, most real estate agents come into this because they want flexibility. They want to be their own boss. And then they get into it and they realize they suck at being their own boss. So change that mindset of coming in to be your own boss and come in to grow a business, to build a business, starting with systems, processes. How will you do the same thing over and over again? The person that sells $1 million or makes $1 million in GCI, they may not have every system and process, but I guarantee you they do almost every single thing the same exact way every single time.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can sell $1 million or earn $1 million in GCI.
Only way you can guarantee your quality of outcome.
Only way. One of our agents is two of them are both single agents selling hundreds of homes a year. Right? You know that way they can do it, doing it different every single time. So start from the ground up. You have more time right now than money. Put in the work. Have conversations with people. Build conversations. And start right now. Everything that you do, if I do it more than one time, it becomes a process. It becomes a system.
Nike, just do it.
Just do it.
Concluding this book club with Kyle,
With another quote.
with one more quote, I do want to. If you are somebody who's like, I'm a person who reads constantly, I look for answers in books. Tribe of Mentors. It's Tim Ferriss' podcast written in book form, and literally one of the questions in every single time through this book is, how do you? These are interviews with top CEOs, top performers in their respective fields in the world. And one of the questions that gets asked every time is like, how do you handle stress?
Yeah.
So if you want to know like what other successful people are doing, aside from us, I don't know why you would, but it's here. I recommend this book. And there is one quote from the CEO of AngelList. I'm going to butcher his name. His name is Naval Ravikant.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So this is what he said.
Well, we know who's not investing in simpliHOM. Over at AngelList.
Give me an opportunity to correct it. So when he gets overwhelmed, he reminds himself, memento mori. Remember that you have to die. And that's where we'll leave off on the simpliHOM podcast. We'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much for joining. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment.
Do all the things.
Do all the things.
Click
the
to
band's
see
back
part
together. Click to see part 2.
Peace.
Hey guys, it's Swy. Thank you for joining us this week, and we really hope you got some useful information and we made your day a little bit better. If you're interested in joining the movement of realtors getting their time and life back, check us out at joinsimplihome.com on the browser, at simpliHOM on socials, or in the description. See you next week.